Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Network Hour podcast. I am your host, Molly Crease, and today I have with me Jasmine Briggs-Rogers. She is a career coach, resume writer, career strategist, all of the above, and also the owner of Creatively Inspired. And today we're going to be talking about a very awesome topic. We're going to be talking about crafting that elevator pitch, right? We're talking about the importance of the elevator pitch and why you need to make sure that it's solid. So we are going to, before I jump into it, Jasmine, is there anything else you want to let our listeners know about you?
Yeah, so I am a career transitioner. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do after I decided I no longer wanted to be an actor. And so I love helping people figure out what that next phase in their career is.
Right. So today we're going to be dealing with the elevator pitch that gets results because we want it to be successful for you. And we know that this is a challenge for a lot of people crafting and figuring out what's the right elevator pitch and all of that stuff. So, Jasmine, just share a little bit about your background and what inspired you to start Creatively Inspired.
So I am a native New Yorker, and all my life I wanted to be an actor. I ended up going to GW. I studied theater. I minored in creative writing, and I came back to New York City with the goal of trying to get on Broadway and TV.
Oh, wow.
Um, I did a lot of waiting tables, and I also started working in recruiting. And then I just felt like I wanted something more. So I went back to school and I got my master's in transpersonal psychology, which is a spiritual psychology that really looks at human beings at their highest functioning. And that's when I transitioned into workforce development, helping people who had a history of substance abuse issues or disabilities find jobs. And that's really when I started learning about how important that elevator pitch is and helping individuals who even had to talk about their time of not working or being incarcerated and spin that into an elevator pitch that would get them hired. From there, I went on to work at uh, Berkeley College as a career counselor. And that's when I really started my business. I prior to that, I was doing workshops on how to use creative expression, journaling, collage to set goals. I had gotten my certificate in life coaching through my master's program. And once I got into college, I was like, I really like helping people find jobs. And I want to focus on that in my own business. I had been writing resumes as a ghostwriter for some services. So I started marketing my own resume writing services as myself. And I started my business, I would say, I transitioned my business to be career coaching, creatively inspired career coaching. And yeah, so I then just really immersed myself in the world. I ended up doing a training for being a digital brand strategist and helping people create their personal brands and turn that into their LinkedIn profiles and online presence. And so now I think it's been 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm still in the college. I'm the senior director of career services as well, but I've been working my business.
That's that's awesome. I mean, what in your story you talk about wanting to be an actor. So a Broadway or whatever you. So did you train in the arts? You triple threat, singing, dancing, that sort of stuff?
I'm not a singer. I've always grown up dancing. I went to dance every Saturday,
Mhm.
Broadway Dance Center as a kid. I think I even went to Harlem Dance Center when I was very young. And then I got to college thinking I was going to be a theater major and a dance minor. And I took one dance class with the kids that were on dance scholarships, and I was like, no, that's not for me. And then I changed to creative writing and focusing on fiction and playwriting.
Okay.
After college, yeah, I did another like 2-year program in studies. So when you're doing acting, you're always taking acting classes.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Interesting. So, in your experience and from your creative writing and all that stuff, you must have a unique perspective on elevator pitch. So, in your opinion, what makes an elevator pitch stand out? What are the key things that you look for?
Yeah, I think really showing who you are and what you bring to the table. So, giving yourself a title, or even if you haven't done it yet, right? If you aspire to be a marketing director, that's what I say. Tell people I'm a marketing director. Or, if you're a recent graduate, I'm a marketing assistant, right? Be realistic where you are at the
Mhm.
level. Um, but having something get standing out, showing what you bring to the table. I often, I have a different networking pitch for networking events that I do for the job interviews. So at
Definitely.
networking events, I typically start with saying I help people love their Monday mornings. And I think starting off with something that kind of grabs their attention
Mhm.
is a way to stand out. So what do you bring to the table, and how can you use who you are to really grab someone's attention in a positive way?
Yeah, yeah, that's important because when I talk about networking and when I network and all that stuff, what I notice about a lot of people is that they think when you're in a networking environment or whatever, the first thing that they want to pitch to you is this is what I do and this is all this long list of stuff. And usually I would say to people, when you get into that networking space, don't let it be so robotic. Be casual about it and have that authenticity to say, like, okay, hi, my name is this, and I love doing this, and ease into that conversation before you slap me with this is what I do, and this. That can be a turn off as well. So I like what you said about what you say about loving your Monday mornings. That's interesting. That will definitely grab my attention. So what are some key components of an effective elevator pitch? So yes, you say craft your elevator pitch, do this, but when I'm crafting it, what are some key things that I must include in that pitch?
Yeah, so if you're crafting it for, let's say, a job interview, I often say start with the amount of years you've been in the industry. So for a job interview, I might say I have over 15. Hi, I'm Jasmine Briggs-Rogers. I have over 15 years of experience in workforce development and career services. Currently, I tell I'm this X, Y, and Z, and then I tell a little bit about my story. I started in workforce development. I worked my way up. And then I typically end it with some of my soft skills and things that I enjoy doing. So really love giving workshops and talking to students about where they want to take their career next. And I crafted based on the job description.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at what are some of the things that they're asking for and when can I relate it back to my experience. So who you are, how long you've been doing it, what you love, and a little bit about who personal, not too
Yeah.
personal, right? But sometimes I'll throw in, I'm a native New Yorker because I feel like there are a lot of transplants now. So that's
Yeah.
something that stands out.
Yeah. So what are some of the key differences, like for instance, example between a pitch that you would craft for an interview versus a pitch you would craft for a regular networking event?
So for a regular networking event, I'm really sticking to that 30 seconds. um, and I just a little bit about my story. So I might say, have a personal brand statement. That's 1 to 2 sentences that really encompasses what you do, the value you bring, and who you are. So I might, so for a networking event, I typically say, Hi, I'm Jasmine Briggs-Rogers, and I help you love your Monday mornings. I work with professionals and executives on creating job search strategy, career plans, and personal branding. Whereas if I was to expand that for a interview, I would throw in how many years I've been doing it, a little bit more about how I do it, and some more about my story of how I got there.
Sounds good. What would you say, because you said you work in career services and all of that stuff? Before I dive into common mistakes that people make, I have a lot of through the New York chapter of the National Black MBA, a lot of students that might be in grad school, undergrad, and they're looking for that first job, and they're looking to dive into networking. It's their first times in networking. So I know a pitch for a student is going to be totally different than a pitch for a professional who might have 5, 10 years experience. So talk about some of those differences in that pitch, professional level executive versus a student who might be undergrad or grad.
Yeah, I think for a student, just throw out there immediately that you're a student. People like students. It's like when a professional comes up to you, you're like, oh, what are they trying to sell me? But with the student, they're a little bit more open to hear, right? So for a student, I would say, hi, I'm a student at Fordham University getting my MBA in finance. I'm
Mm-hmm.
currently working as a teller, but I'm looking to transition into wealth management. And one thing I think for students is don't be vague. Have a specific job title, and it can be no more than two, but have a specific job title. I think one of the mistakes students make, or they just say, I'm looking for something in my field, and when even people who want to help and have the best intentions, it's not memorable, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to if you say a job title, then they can go, oh, I know someone that works there, or, oh, you should talk to this person. But just putting the responsibility on them to say what's in your field, even if they want to help, it's forgettable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I would add to is that sometimes if you're in a space, if it's not just a random networking event that went to, and it's in a space where you had the opportunity to do some research or whatever, and you're talking to someone, maybe you might be that student who is involved in extracurricular activities or government associations in on campus or what have you, and maybe that person might have those things in common. That could be a part of your networking pitch as well, meeting the person and asking some questions on that. So just finding those little things that's going to make you unique, I think, is really important too as well.
Yeah, know who went to your school. If you're in any kind of fraternity or sorority, look up who those alumni are, and see
Yeah,
if they're going to be at these events. So start with that. I'm also a member of X, Y, and Z.
exactly. Especially the sororities and stuff like that. Yeah, those are easy markers. So let's get into the mistakes, because people make a lot of mistakes with the elevator pitch. So what are some of the most common mistakes that you've seen?
And I see this a lot in students. And I always, whether you're just meeting with me the first time, I'm like, tell me about yourself.
Hmm.
And it's always, what do you want to know? Right. So, um,
They actually say that, ask that question.
yeah, it's it. Put the question, but what do you want to know? Oh, so I think going into any situation, already having that elevator pitch ready, whether it's networking, whether it's an interview. I think another common mistake is starting off with soft skills. So if I say, tell me about yourself or tell me about your background, well, I'm creative. I like to do good at math. I think those are things that you want to put at the end, but those are not your starters. Your starters are, I'm currently a credit analyst, or I'm currently a student. Giving yourself a title, again, I think those are two of the biggest mistakes I see is, asking the question back, starting with soft skills. And sometimes those soft skills are generic, right?
Yeah.
When you're giving a skill, instead of telling me that you're good at something, give me an example of where you've done it.
Yeah. I think another common mistake that I've seen too is wanting to say too much in a short space of time. And a lot of this has to do with nervousness and not knowing what to say. Maybe you might not have prepared your elevator pitch beforehand, or maybe you might find yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable to you, and so you get some, what is it, you get diarrhea at the mouth and you start
Yeah.
just spitting everything out, right? And not giving the other person that opportunity to catch up or to talk or to whatever. So that's a common mistake I see as well. And it just doesn't happen with students. It happens with professionals that are seasoned in their field, and they tend to get diarrhea at the mouth sometimes. So that's definitely one that I've seen a lot.
Yeah. And paying attention to those like nonverbal cues, it's a conversation. So you really should know like when you're losing someone, when someone's looking away, when someone's like, okay,
Exactly.
So being able to pick on up on that and just like, okay, stop.
Yeah, exactly. And even some of us that are professionals don't, some of, I've seen people not pick up on those cues, and those nonverbal cues are very, very important. You have to know if you're too close in someone's face talking, give that 6 feet separation that they say. Stuff like little things like that can turn people away if you're not aware of them.
Mhm.
Definitely nonverbal cues. So we talk about crafting the pitch, we talk about getting it there. And the next step is talking about delivering it with confidence, articulating that pitch. And so the first thing is how, and we were just talking about nonverbal cues, and this
Mhm.
question is, how important is body language and tone of voice when delivering an elevator pitch? Because this is something that maybe a lot of people take for granted, but is probably very important. So talk about that.
Yeah, it's super important because I think, and I don't know the statistics on listening, but people are listening with more than what you say, right? They're looking at your posture, they're looking at the tone of your voice, your facial expressions. So I definitely recommend everyone should have a camera phone, record yourself, practice, see how you look on camera. Is your, pitch monotone? If you sound like this and you're reading it like this, you lose people. So having those inflections in your voice, and even being conscious of things like I know I'm a big like, person. So being conscious of when you're saying those things, and even things like vocal fry, and how your voice sounds.
Mhm.
So practice, 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 record yourself. I say write out your elevator pitch, have different versions that you write out. You want it kind of memorized, right? Not so memorized that it's like rote reading a script, but memorized enough where you know that you're hitting all of these points.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how important those things are, especially your language and your tone of voice, because some of us, uh, especially in the United States, is a melting pot. We come from so much different parts of the world, and so practicing how to be um, best in communication, that's gonna be definitely be a one. And do you have any tips for introverts? Because I know a lot of people will not believe this, but I'm an introvert, and if I'm getting into a room, oh hi, I see you have a little one there. If I'm getting into a room that I'm not familiar with, I tend to kind of observe first before I dive into it. So, what are your tips for introverts or those who struggle with public speaking to
Yeah.
confidently present their pitch?
So I'm an introvert myself, very shy. One of the things that has helped me is before I go into any kind of networking event, setting a goal for myself. So I need to meet this many people. One thing that really would help me out too is I'll pay to check my coat because I spent a little money. So if I spent a little money to be here, I can't just run out. I would say, what are you telling yourself before you go in? Have something that you are, what's your kind of mantra that's positive, that you can repeat to yourself. Know that other people are nervous too, right? So when you're in these networking events, look for the person that's standing by themselves. They don't necessarily want to be standing by themselves. So I try to, like, if someone else is standing by themselves, I try to go and talk to them first and always lead with positive. So if you're at an event, it's not like, oh, this is so boring, or ooh, the food here is bad. Lead in with something positive because that will make people more drawn to you. Smiles. I just practice smiling at random people. People respond to smiling, I think. And then even, we are talking before about giving your elevator pitch. People hear smiles in your voice. So if you're on a phone call in an interview, I always say, remember to smile on that phone call because people hear smiles. Something about smiles draw people in. And again, it's for introverts, so much what you're telling yourself. We spend a lot of time in our own heads. So making sure that what we're repeating to ourselves in our own head is positive, and knowing that there are other people out there that are just waiting for you to come and chat with them. Also, you could have like some openers. What are your openers, right?
Mhm.
It can be about the weather. It's a beautiful day. Have you been to this kind of event before? How did you learn about this event? So, you have your 2 to 3 openers that you lead with. And then I would say, after you get your opening, start asking the other person about themselves because people like to talk about themselves.
Yeah, I say conversation starters, have those
Mhm.
conversation starters. It's interesting. I've never heard of this. You're the first person I hear say this. People hear your smiles. Remember to smile while you're speaking. I've never heard about that.
Yeah, you can hear smiles. So next time you're on the phone with someone, just pay, and you're having like a happy conversation versus a sad conversation, you'll tell the difference in their voice. So yeah, smiles can be heard.
Okay. Oh wow, you learn something new every day. You learn something new every day. So how can someone refine and practice their pitch to ensure it feels natural and engaging? Because we don't want to come off as too rehearsed.
Yeah. So as I was saying, have it slightly memorized, record yourself, and practice it all the time with different people. Like, let your family and friends know, hey, I'm just going to randomly come up to you and introduce myself. And so that way you'll get in the habit of saying it. The more you're out there going to networking events, meeting new people, this will be your chance. Even if you're at a social party, practice that pitch as well. And make sure to refine it for the situation. So before an interview, your pitch is going to be different. You're going to target it towards that position. So you may have to rewrite it. You may have to say it to yourselves a few times, practice it in your head. And then, practice it in your head and then kind of just let it go and let it flow out naturally.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so much information. I'm writing as you speak, so I can go over it again. But let's dive into making an impact and getting results, because is the topic is on elevate, having that elevator pitch that give results, right? So let's talk about the strategies that job seekers can adopt or can use to make sure their elevator pitch leads to a meaningful connection. Because at the end of
Mhm.
the day, that's what you want. You want, when you're pitching, you want to get that job. When you're pitching, you want to make that new connection, depending on what scenario and what outcome you're looking to achieve. So
Mhm.
give us some strategies.
Yeah, so you really want to first and foremost do your research. Research the company and research the person that you're interviewing with. Look at their LinkedIn profile. Are there any similarities? Did they go to the same school? Is there something that they're interested that you are interested in? And incorporate that into your pitch. So we talked before about sororities or fraternities, but even volunteer organizations. If you're interviewing with someone and you see on their LinkedIn that they volunteer for a certain organization and you do too, that should be in your pitch. um, I had someone who I was interviewing for a position, and they somehow incorporated the mission of the college into their pitch. And I was like, wait a second. I first was like, is that I didn't know whether it was on purpose or not, or if it was just synergy. I was like, wow, they're so aligned. And I hired them.
Wow.
So how can you really think about incorporating the organization's culture, mission, and values into your pitch, especially if they align with your mission and values? So knowing what your values are too, and being able to speak about those and incorporate those into your pitch and into your interview will help you to stand out.
Yeah. I really love that story about them incorporating the mission into the pitch. And it's not just about crafting the pitch and articulate it and stuff like that, but talk about how our listeners also, once you've spoken that pitch, once you've articulated that pitch and you're looking to make that connection, it might be an interview or it might be a connection through a networking event. How do you follow up after delivering your pitch to maintain that connection?
Yeah, so I think asking a question yourself, right? And a lot of times we think interviews have to be all them asking you questions, but you're allowed to ask the person questions. So after you might talk about ask them how they got into the organization, what they think about this role, or if you're in a networking situation, really talking to them about their values and what they are doing now and how it can relate. Um, I think how to really make an impression on someone is to match their energy. Um, People hire people that they like. An old boss told me that, right? Um, you can train anyone to do anything, but making yourself likable, connecting with that person, it is really the 80% of the interview is kind of building that connection. So paying attention to your body language, how engaged you are, how the conversation moves is important, and finding ways to kind of make a personal touch. If you see they have something on their desk that's a sports item, bringing it up, talking about your connection to that item. If you have a project that you are working on at your current job in school and it relates to something that the company is doing and you know this person would know about that project, finding a way to talk about it and show your enthusiasm for it.
Those are great. Those are all great helpful tips. And I would even add too, in terms of the interview and the following up process, if even after you've sent that thank you email and then you haven't heard anything, you might want to send in that thank you email asking about the next steps, asking about when you would get an answer or what have you. And I would say too, if even if it's not if you got the answer and it's not what you wanted, that does not mean you can't still maintain that connection by following that person on LinkedIn, by sending messages in different times at random times, because you never know, another position might open up the next month or the next month, and you're top of mind for that person to call and say, oh, we have this other position. I remember interviewing you, but are you interested? We would love to bring you back in. So it's always trying to maintain that connection, whether there might be disappointment or whether there might be good success stories. So just wanted to throw that in there as well too.
Yeah. I did a training with the coach through Berkeley that said, after the thank you note, you can also follow up again one more time. I wouldn't say don't follow up more than, after the thank you note, only one more follow up after that. But by sending an article or something that you think the person would be interested in. So I'd never heard that for an interview. I like that topic, but definitely for networking, right?
Yeah.
Following up within 24 hours. But then again, if you see something that you think the person would be interested in, send it to them. The goal is to build a relationship.
Yeah, definitely, definitely the goal. So we're winding down here, and I want to ask if someone is struggling to create their elevator pitch, where should they start?
So I would say they should take a moment to really visualize what they want their future career to look like. I'm a big visualization person. So what are you doing? What's the office environment? How much are you making? Where are you commuting? How are you spending your days? What are the things about that role that make you happy? Then taking a look at what are you known for? What's your brand? When people think of you, what do they think about? And if you're struggling, right, there are a lot of online assessments that you could take a look at that really talk about your brand. There's the Reach 360. You can reach out to your friends and colleagues and say, hey, what are 3 words that you would use to describe me? There's a picture in a box thing where you can send them a picture of a box and say, send back 3 pictures that you think describe who I am, but don't give me any explanation. And when they send back the pictures, you decide what you think the pictures mean, right, about you. You can then later ask them why they picked those pictures, but it's really about what do you think they mean. And so from there, you take a assessment of what are you known for, what's your brand, how do you want to spend your time, and then take a look at what are some of the major accomplishments that have been impactful for you. And then starting, okay, well, here's who I am. I am a creative, heart-centered career coach, right? That values uh, having people love their careers. And that's how I would say to start making your elevator pitch. You really got to know who you are and where you want to take your career.
Interesting. Or they can contact you.
Yes, or you can contact me and we can work on that together.
And that brings us to our last question. How can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work, learn more about your services and stuff like that?
Yeah, so my website is my name, my official name, not my married name, jasminebriggs.com. And that is the same for my emails, jasmine@jasminebriggs.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Jasmine Briggs, or you can search Jasmine Briggs-Rogers, and I try to weekly post videos to support you in building your career. I'm on all the social medias as well, CI coaching. But feel free to email me. I'm happy to set up a time to chat about your career and any advice I can give. And if you're interested in working together, I offer career coaching, resume writing, LinkedIn profiles services.
Jasmine, thank you so much. This was awesome. You gave a lot of great insights here, showing who you are, what you bring to the table, standing out when you're thinking about crafting your elevator pitch. You talk about having a personal brand statement. We talked about tone, voice, and facial expressions, the importance of those nonverbal cues. You talked about people hearing your smile, so remembering to smile when you're in conversation. And you also gave us some great strategies on delivering that pitch and following up. And so sounding out your website again is jasminebriggs.com, or your email at jasmine@jasminebriggs.com, or you can connect with her on LinkedIn, Jasmine Briggs-Rogers. Thank you so much, Jasmine. This was awesome. This was lot of great information. I hope our listeners listen, take notes, and take what you have given them and craft the best elevator pitch to give them some great results. Thank you so much. And to everyone, this has been another episode of the Network Hour podcast. Thank you so much for listening to us on the topic, the elevator pitch that gets results. And I hope you learn a lot. And until next time, live, laugh, and love.